Okay, guys, so I'm making another video. I got my comfy pants on. It's pretty warm in the house. I spent time outside yesterday, so I'm spending time inside today. But as I said in a previous video, I was walking around, and it seems like when I'm outside, or maybe it's like when I'm outside and by myself, I think a lot more about things I want to talk about. And like I said, this channel is going to be about, pretty much anything, I guess, self exploration. But so I was thinking about times in the past where I had believed certain things, got caught in belief systems, and how now I'm a whole lot different than I used to be. Like, I guess people that used to know me would probably say I'm a lot different now. And that I think that's, experiences change us. Some experiences for the better, some experiences not, but, everything teaches us something. So I think it's our job to kind of weed through all of that. And so um, I think one thing that I realized is like, if we're caught in believing one thing, and that's the way it is, then there's no room for growth. It gives us, like, closed minds, which I think, your mind is, your perception of things, like gives you your point of view. So if you only believe words, then you're going to only believe what people say, not what they do. And if you only believe what people do, then you're only going to believe that and not what they say. Or let's say, if your inner core is that you only believe negative, then you're going to believe negative things, and not leave any room for the positive. So I think this has happened to me with people in my past, or, maybe I think this is what happens when, um, you know, with the job I had experiencing things. Like, maybe this is what happens when people are in crisis or in trauma. Like, you get stuck in that mind frame, and then, sometimes, and then you need help out of it, because if you're only stuck believing negative things, whether it's about yourself or others, then there's absolutely zero room to move, to grow, to do anything, because it doesn't matter if people educate you, you know, um, then you're not going to believe them, because you've already got your mind made up. And I think maybe our culture gets stuck in this sometimes, and I think that's the way a lot of times our country is right now. Is, everything's so divided that it's like you have to believe this or that. And it's turning everything, it's black or it's white. Everything is all good or all bad. Everybody is all right or all wrong. And I don't I don't know what needs to be done about that, other than, each individual person, like, deciding, um, what is the definition of love? What is the definition of, freedom? I know personally, I've had to redefine a lot of things in my life, and I've always been a lifelong learner. So, but I can see in my past where there were times where I wasn't researching and I wasn't learning. Um, but it's like if you grew up and you thought that the color red was the color blue, the only reason that we all say the color is red is because that was a word that was given to it a long time ago. But if somebody was raised somewhere else and they were taught, no, the word for that color is blue, they would think differently. And I think it's those belief systems that get people caught in their ways. I've always been a look up the definition. What is the definition of that? There's multiple definitions to words. Like maybe somebody used a word in a way that you weren't aware of, that was one of the definitions or something. But I know for me, it's been redefining a lot of, redefining my whole vocabulary with things of what is crisis. There's been times in my life where I thought things were devastating. And like I had said in previous videos, like there's some times that, if I drop something, it's devastating for me. Like I made a video the other night about like when I can't find something that I know I have because I don't remember where I put it. It's like a devastating feeling for me. But then I have to, catch myself and be like, is that really devastating? Like, is that the definition of devastating? Because maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe you're just overwhelmed. Maybe you just got too much stuff going on. Maybe you just got sidetracked and did 5 different things. And in those 5 different things, you just can't remember where you put the hammer. So I don't know. That's been part of stuff that I've learned about, like, what is the definition of love? Some people might think love is like just a word that you say to everybody, no matter what, no matter who they are to you, or no matter what they've done or everything. But I think for me, it's a very sacred word. I don't say that to everybody. I don't, and I've even been very protective. If people said it to me sometimes, I would think, well, that's a word that I hold for only the closest people to me or something. But that's where then you define, like, what do you mean love? Like, do you love me, romantically? Do you love me, in a friendship? Do you love me family wise? That's where that word could be used different ways. But even as far as relationships and friendships and stuff, of like, what is a friend? Is a friend just a person that you talk to every now and then? Or is it, what would be the definition of friendship to people? Because for me, when it comes to relationships, it's like I try to define what that relationship is to me, because it has a connection and it has a bond with me. And, whether it's a work relationship, a family relationship, a friend relationship, a romantic relationship, because each one of those relationships has different boundaries, different ways that you would behave, different words that you would use. And I think sometimes people get stuck in leaving the definition up to other people to define what it is, or leave it open-ended or something. I don't know, but for me personally, I've just been, and I guess that's why maybe I've been somewhat discouraged, I would say, sometimes with relationships that I had, because I would think, like, if somebody's friends to me, then I'm concerned about what's going on with them. You know what I mean? Like, I was always the friend who would show up, when somebody needed a ride home. I was always the friend that people would call if they had an issue that they needed to talk to. I was always the friend who, if you need help, I'm going to be there. And sometimes it was even, to where I did way more than I should have. Felt like I could never say no, because then if I say no, they might think I'm a bad friend. But also trying to do so one thing that I learned was trying to put up, boundaries and I don't know, definitions of, if I'm your friend, this is what I'm willing to do. But I can't, do it at the expense of, let's say, home life or other people, in my life that I know I had relationships where I had put other people before other people that some people may have taken offense to, but for me it was because like relationships were levels to intimacy and to commitment and to, I would say like, work relationships might know some stuff about me, but they wouldn't know as much as friendships, and those people wouldn't know as much as like intimate relationships and things like that. But so that's something that I've been going back and doing, just like trying to be aware of like doing the words match action. I've had a lot of people in my life, and I know that I've done this in the past with things, but trying to be like, if you tell me something, then I believe it. But if your actions speak differently, like maybe some people don't think that actions speak, but if your actions show me differently, then I'm going to believe your actions, because that's what's actually happening. I think sometimes there's a disconnect of saying one thing, and then if your actions, of maybe not doing the actions to prove your words. And I know for me that's been devastating in my past, like I had mentioned in other videos. If somebody says, I'll be there for you, and then whenever and then they're not, then which are you going to believe? You're going to believe the you're not, so that's what's true. Just, like if people say, you could ask me for help, I'll help you anytime I can. And then when you do ask for help, they don't. Then eventually you learn, like, I'm not going to ask for help. Because it seems like when I ask for help, then that's when you can't help me. And I think that's where maybe sometimes relationships, and like I said, whether it's family, friendships, or intimate, that's where see, he hopped up and I lost my train of thought for a second. I think that's where for me personally, I had always been the like, we'll wait and see. You know what I mean? Like I will believe your words until you prove differently. But if your actions don't reflect your words, then I'm going to believe your actions of what is actually going on. And I think that's something for people in crisis, like they need that connection. They need to know that what you say is true, is what they're going to do. That's what, with my job, I tried to be if I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. If I'm not there, that means that something has happened. Something severe has happened, because I am going to allot this time for you, so that that when you ask for help, when I have told you that I'm going to be there, then I'm going to be there. Because then that person's trust, gets rebuilt. And I think some people have lost trust in words, in actions, in all of that. And I know that's something for me personally, is I have had a lot of people in my life, which I'm sure I have done this also, but I have had a lot of people in my life that have said one thing and done the opposite, and then wonder why my trust is thin, or why I don't trust, when I think, that's where trust comes from. If those two things are the same, if they reflect each other, then that's the truth. But, and that kind of, I guess for me personally, some of the stuff that I have dealt with in the past few years, if somebody says they love you and then they act like they don't, then you're going to think like you don't love me. Like, you can tell me that till you're blue in the face, but if your actions act like you don't even like me, you don't even want to be around me, you don't want to speak to me, you don't want to do anything with me, I'm going to think like you obviously don't love me. Like, I don't know how else, and I can't change that, if you're the one in charge of it. Just I've tried to show people, if I say I care, and I will act like I care. If I say I will listen to you, then if you want to talk to me, I will listen to you. But if the other part of it is, then you won't listen to me, then I'm probably not going to be as apt to want to listen to you. That's where, for me, relationships, I said, was partnerships. That was one of the reasons, like with my job, I was at the point where I was, they would say, like, happy holidays, we appreciate you. And I would think like, okay, I know you said that, but it doesn't seem like it, because it's not reflecting in my pay. It's not reflecting in the no help that I'm getting. It's not reflecting that you appreciate me. That's just a word, because I don't feel like it, and reality is not reflecting it. So I guess that's just something I've been striving to do, is be more aware of whatever I say, my actions have got to reflect it. And then also with relationships that I make, to make sure that that person knows, if you tell me one thing, then I'm going to believe that until you prove differently, because words can only go so far. They say, like, there's a lot of sayings, I guess. I'm really big on sayings. Like, my kids used to say, like, you just have words on the walls, Mom, not a lot of pictures, which now I have more pictures, but I used to have just sayings all the time. And I guess something that I'd been dealing with was silence. and there's that whole saying about like, um, I think it's like distance makes the heart grow fonder and, things like that. And for me, that's not true. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, it's like distance doesn't make the heart grow fonder. It makes it more sad, I think. I guess it depends on, is it distance that you're waiting for somebody that you know you're going to see? Or is it distance of somebody that you'll never see again? Because then that's two separate feelings. And for me, in the previous video I made, I talked about like some people can't take a lot of noise. Some people can't take a lot of silence. I know for me, it's been silence. I spent a lot of time in silence as a child. I would backtalk. I've always been the backtalker and the why this and why that and this doesn't seem right, and and that's where I got the thing about, I always got told like your mouth's gonna get you in trouble. But I'm the person who usually speaks up. It was only in different relationships that I got where I didn't speak up, where I felt like I couldn't because I was silenced. And that was done to me as a child. My father would do like, in a discussion. No buts. In a discussion. And to silence somebody means like your words don't matter. Whatever you have to say is not important. I'm in charge of you talking, and then that makes a person feel controlled. And then when you use silence to control somebody, especially if that person has spent a lot of time in silence before, silence was a punishment, was the you are not allowed to talk. That whole saying about like children should be seen and not heard. I was silenced a lot. So for me, I would tell people, if you use the silent treatment on me, I take it as punishment. If you stop me from talking and you say I'm not allowed to talk, that I cannot express myself, and then you don't speak to me for weeks, then what that's going to do, the distance is not going to make my heart grow fonder. What that's going to do is that's going to teach me, you don't care. You don't care about me. You know that this thing that you're doing is hurting me, and you don't care. So then I'm just going to exit. I've spent a lifetime, I would say, chasing friendships, chasing relationships, of me being the one to call, me being the one to travel, me being the one to write, me being the one doing everything, trying to keep relationships alive with people, and then seems like they don't care. You know what I mean? Like if people don't write back, if people don't call back, if people don't reflect that back, then eventually you get tired of it. Eventually you're like, you obviously want nothing to do with me. So I guess I will just exit your life, because I'm not going to keep chasing for attention, chasing to remind you that I exist. And I think for me, those things would put me into trauma responses of, I had friendships, family members. It started in my childhood, but I had people who I would tell them, please don't do this because I take this way. This hurts me. It's used as a control tactic, of you sit there and you wait. And for me, it would feel like I'm kind of caged, like Okay, well, when are we going to talk? Are you ever talking again? Or like what's going on? It's been days, it's been weeks, it's been months, it's been years. Is this ever, you know, people that would say, well, I just need a little time to get away. And I would be like, okay, well, then can I get a time frame when you're coming back so then I can know, eventually it'll happen. And nothing. So I think that's where I've had to redefine relationships with me is, if you reflect in your actions that you don't care at all of my feelings, of my things, of my definitions of words, of my boundaries, of things that, would show respect, then there's nothing I can do. Then I will just exit because like I said, I spent a lifetime chasing people. And if it seems like you want nothing to do with me, then I'm going to get the hint. It's going to happen. I don't know if social media has done this, where I know one thing that makes me sad is like people don't call anymore. Like even I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if it's social media, but people would rather text than to call. And I get that sometimes people think it's quicker, but I think sometimes it's not, because it's faster to say something usually than to type it. But I think for me, because I do have that issue with, like, I can't visualize. I don't remember the sounds of people's voices. It's like if I hear a voice on the TV, I will say, oh, who is that actor? Where is that from? If it's not the actual person, like especially in animations, something. But I'm that way with everything. So if I don't hear a person's voice for a while, then I don't remember what they sound like. If I don't see a person's face for a while, I don't remember what they look like. It's like if I saw them again, I would probably recognize them. Especially if it's somebody close, I definitely would. But I think for me, maybe it's because I've said about I know I have that aphantasia where you can't visualize things in your mind. Like when I close my eyes, I can't form an image of things. So I can't pull up visual images. So for me, it's more extreme of silent treatment things, or people not calling and people just texting instead, or things like that it's because I'm like, okay, if I'm reading this message you sent me, I'm just reading it, just like I'm reading a news article, just like I'm reading, like I can't hear the person's voice in my head. I may be able to look and say, yeah, that's how they talk. That's, how they write. But I don't hear that voice in my head. I don't see that person's face in my mind. It's fleeting all the time. It's almost like, I don't know if I keep trying to describe it to people, and I'm like, maybe it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. If you made a picture on an Etch-a-Sketch, and then, after a while, if you carried it around and stuff, it's eventually going to shake away. I'm like that with things. But it's so much so of, I would say that, it's like when you look at a light and then you close your eyes and you can see that flash for a little bit of the light. It's like that with me for people's voices. and I'm trying to do some research on that and figure out, like, is there some fix to that or something? But for me, I guess that's why I would tell people, if you want to talk to me, come talk to me. What do I think is better than a text? I think it's calling me on the phone. And what do I think is better than calling me on the phone? I think it's seeing me in person. Those kind of things, because I'm like, I can't see what you look like even if you're talking to me on the phone. It's like a memory of something that I can't see. So I don't know if that comes from trauma or whatever, because like I've stated before, like I know I used to when I was really young, because I would close my eyes and then stuff that I would see would turn, really scary. But in my adult life, I think that's why I, like having things in the same place. And a lot of my life has been moving and putting stuff in a different place and on and on. And that's why I hate moving and everything, because I'd be like, I don't remember what's on that wall. I don't remember. If you keep moving things around, doing things around, I don't remember what was there, because it flees and goes away. And that happens with people. If somebody is around me and then they walk out and then they're gone for weeks, it's like, I don't remember what you look like. I can't pull that up. It's like a memory with a black curtain, but I can't pull up, your face in my mind. If you don't talk to me on the phone, or if you don't talk to me in person, I don't remember what your voice sounds like. And that's a sad feeling for me. It's like I wish that I had a way to compartmentalize, things that I could bring up, but I don't know if it's about, like, I know it's memory issues, but I don't know if it's like a specific part of the brain gets damaged, or, like I've stated before, like maybe I accidentally hypnotized myself, because I said, like, when I was little, I would just start thinking of a lollipop then. And I also wonder, like, is that because I spent so much time by myself? I was grounded a lot. And back then there was like no TVs in your room, and not a lot to do. So maybe my imagination went overboard back then and got scary. And without anybody there to tell me everything was going to be okay, I came up with this whole think of a lollipop. But I know as an adult, like, that would be one reason why I would tell people, like, if you don't talk to me for days, like, I can't pull up your voice, and I would miss your voice. So I would want to hear your voice. If I haven't seen a friend or a family member for a long time or something, I'd be like, I want to see your face, because I haven't seen it in so long and I can't pull it up in my mind. I know that's why, some people have pictures and stuff. And for me, yeah, I can look at a picture, but then it's like, that's the memory of then, not of now, and not an updated thing. So I guess that's one way that social media has been great, is, people will post pictures and stuff. But for me, it's just kind of a sad feeling. But so anyway, I can see my phone's doing the counter again, where it's like only allowing me to record so much. So I'm sure it's like something with the cache stuff, like I've got to delete it or something. I don't know. Technology is just, ugh. And then I wonder too, like, is that part of it? Is like I learn things, and then if I don't keep doing them, then I forget them. You know how they say if you don't use it, you lose it? But I wonder, like, is my thing on hyperdrive, or if I don't use it like all the time, I lose it, like maybe even the next day. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, words and actions. I keep trying to align those and better myself to do that. You know, try to reflect so that people could know that my words are true. But also, it has to be actions too. You know, if somebody shows me in their actions they don't want to be with me, or they don't want to be my friend, or they don't want to talk to me, then I'm probably going to, you know, say that that's what it is, not the words. Because like I said with my company, I was like, we appreciate you and we value you. And I thought, like, really? Because I don't feel it, because the actions don't seem like it. You know, they seem the opposite. So, you know, if it was like, come tell me your problems, and then when I tell my problems, then it's like, oh, you're being antagonistic, or you're complaining, or you're this. And I'm like, well, then why'd you ask me? Because I'm doing what you said. But anyway, so I hope everybody's having a good night. I'm gonna upload this video. I don't know if I'm gonna make other ones. I might. Um, we'll see. The cats are actually behaving very well. They're sleeping, so maybe I can get some more videos done. But anyway, happy holidays, guys. Bye.